And Brandon, we're going to move on into the final team that we have to talk about for the SEC East, and that's the Florida Gators. And like you said before we hit the record button, everyone knows they're going to win. Good night, everybody. That should be the podcast, right?
Yeah, can it be?
But really, we got to talk about the Florida Gators, and really I want to start with the easy question. The easy one, Malik Zaire transferring from Notre Dame. I know we talked about him a lot more in depth on a previous podcast, but now that it's a little bit closer to the opening day for the college football season, do you see Malik Zaire winning this job? And if not, if so, what is he going to bring to Florida, and how successful are they going to be with him in 2017?
Well, the more and more that I've read up on the Florida and what they're looking like for this year, it really looks like Malik Zaire may not be a lock to win that quarterback battle with Felipe Franks, the redshirt freshman, there as well. And, he was a top star in the 2016 recruiting class, and this is a guy who certainly is the future, looks to be the future at quarterback for Florida. Remember, Malik Zaire has 1 year left. This is it. And he chose to transfer to Florida, where I don't think you do that unless you think you're going to be playing and starting. So this is going to be an interesting battle all the way through until the very first game that you open up against Michigan.
I was going to say, tough opponent.
It's going to be a very tough opponent. Again, bookended by two very tough teams, Michigan to start, Florida State to end. So Florida did not do themselves any favors or make their schedule easy by any means. They didn't do that. But that's a good thing. But this is the biggest thing. So Austin Appleby and Luke Del Rio, they combined to throw for over 2,800 yards, but 18 touchdowns, 15 picks. That's what they were able to combine for last year. Let's just get both of those guys out of the way. And let's talk about these two guys, and Felipe Franks and Malik Zaire. Malik Zaire, one thing that I think is just a little mind-boggling with him is that being able to start him without really knowing everything that he can do. Well, like, we saw a little bit of what he could do at Notre Dame, but we didn't see enough of it. One was cut short by injury. Others cut short by him just not being the starter anymore because it went to Deshaun Kaiser. We don't truly fully know a full season, I don't think, of what Malik Zaire can do. Now, we really don't know what Felipe Franks can do either because he hasn't done it yet.
Yeah.
This is going to be very, very interesting, but Florida really needs a passing game to get going, because if they don't do that, if they don't have a strong passing game, and Antonio Callaway, that's your boy when he's not having his off-the-field issues.
He's going to be a first-round pick, Antonio Callaway.
Oh, my gosh, he is awesome. He is so exciting to watch. But if he doesn't have someone who can get him the football, Florida may not be that team at the top of the SEC East.
Well, and to me, that's why I'm looking at Callaway, and then I'm also looking at Jordan Scarlett. They got to be the two guys to help out whichever quarterback. And I know that Antonio Callaway can't be the only one in the receiving corps. You can never have just one target, but him and Scarlett have to be the guys. I mean, Scarlett was a guy who, in a loaded backfield, emerged as the number one and is coming off a almost 890-yard rushing performance. And he's a small guy, 5'10", 213, kind of like a little wrecking ball back there. And he has the capabilities to be an 1,000-yard rusher, something Florida hasn't had, or has only had 4 times, in the last 20 years. Not many Florida running backs go for 1,000 yards. They got to help whoever it is, because the thing is with quarterbacks, I know that every time you enter training camp, the coach is going to be like, well, the best guy is going to win the job. Well, you got to be really sure about that guy. You got to go to bed, lay your head on your pillow, and basically say, I am making the right choice, because this is a schedule, like you said, Brandon, they're doing themselves no favors. No favors whatsoever. And I mean, scheduling Michigan to start the season, I like it, because as Florida, you're saying we're a college football playoff team. You win this game, you set up the tone for the season that we are a college football playoff team. However, Michigan wants to do the same thing because they want to set the tone for their season because they are going to have to play Penn State. They're going to have to play Ohio State. They're going to play tough opponents in their conference schedule. And then for Florida, they get to play Florida State at the end. Now, the Florida State game, I'm not really as worried about because that's at the end of the season. Your team's going to be a lot different from week 1 all the way to week numero 13 or 12 or whatever week it is. The thing I look at with this Florida team is that Michigan game. That to me is the biggest one because what I think can happen is if they can get by Michigan, whoever they have at quarterback does a serviceable job to win them the game. That North Colorado game can then be used as a further testing stone to who is the better quarterback for this team. Ideally, if you're a Gator fan, you are wishing and you're kind of being like, well, man, why can't that North Colorado game and Michigan game be flipped? Well, because we want to see the big games week 1, especially when like Alabama's going up against Florida State. We want to see those big neutral site games the first weekend of the college football season. However, right after North Colorado or Northern Colorado, you got Tennessee and you got Kentucky. Those are going to be tough games only because Tennessee, yeah, I know I'm down on them and I said Florida will beat them, but still, they beat you last year. They've got questions, though, at the quarterback and the running back position. Kentucky, to me, I think is the harder one. You got to go on the road. If Johnson can get going with that team that they have, if the quarterback play isn't solid by then, this team could falter, this team could fall. And Florida, to me, although I am confident they will finish either 1 or 2 in the division, I think it comes down to either them or Georgia. If they don't lock down that quarterback position right away, it could either kill their college football playoff hopes or even kill their SEC title game hopes.
So remember in 2015 in the Citrus Bowl when Michigan won 41-7 over Florida? So does Florida.
Yeah.
They remember that too. But Michigan, a team that we have not yet to talk about, but will in the coming weeks, they're a team that they've replaced a lot of guys. And this is going to be an interesting game because you take a look at this, and if Florida loses, just hang with me here. I'm not saying they will, but I'm just saying if Florida loses, then you've already got one loss to open the season with still LSU to play, with still Georgia to play, and then with still Florida State to play.
Yep.
And that would be detrimental. That would be detrimental with all those other teams in there. You mentioned the road game to Kentucky, won't scare a lot of Floridians, but it would be an interesting game. I know you wouldn't say it, but Texas A&M is there, at home. That could be a game that could be one of those trap games, but I'm not too big on the going for the trap games. You're more that guy, but I think that first game against Michigan is such an important one, and it's an important one to be able to know and have your quarterback in place. That this is not a time to be, who will be the one? Well, we'll start with this guy, then we might go with this guy. Pick a quarterback, go with him, stick with him, stay with him. And he's got to be the one to then carry you through, and that's going to be I think one of the big key points as well. But Florida, one of the things they have to be better on is scoring points when they get into the red zone. Now they haven't really needed to worry about scoring points as they usually blow teams out. But in a lot of games that I'm seeing here this year, 3 specifically: Michigan, 4, Michigan, LSU, Georgia, and Florida State, those teams I mentioned just a moment ago. Those are the ones where you get into a spot where you can score, you score. They were good in field goal, 21-25 last year, solid. But they did not do a very good job of converting. I think only converted 20 of 32 times inside the red zone. 30 of 42 trips inside the 20. And in 2015, they were 34 of 51 you can't do that in close games like that. I mean, we saw that happen to Michigan last year when they would get down there and they could not convert. They couldn't do it. They turned the ball over. They won, and it ended with them really struggling. And towards the end, things didn't necessarily go their way. But I think that that's one of the biggest things too. Is that when it comes down to it, those small things are going to end up being some of the biggest factors for you in those big games. And it is. I mean, you how many times have we looked back on a game, in a big game, and saw, man, if they would have, instead of, running it 3 times, trying to get 1 yard, and they couldn't do it, they would have, one pass play, or passing it 3 times, and they needed 1 yard, and then they ended up having to settle for a field goal, and then they missed the field goal, or they got the field goal, but they could have had. How many times have we seen that in a game, a college football game, and go, they would have only just gotten that 1 yard and converted? That's how important that ends up being. And especially in those big games, other teams, they will not let you off the hook.
Well, and that's why I say, to me, the Michigan game and then that Tennessee game are huge, only in the fact that if you lose both of those games, I don't mean to sound like an overdramatic, but if you lose both of those games, season's over. Season is over right there, pack it up. And the reason why I say that, if you lose to Michigan, I don't think you're making the college football playoff. And I know people are going to say, whoa, Ricky, whoa, 1 loss ain't going to kill you. If you lose to Michigan, I don't think you will finish the season with just 1 loss. Let me just say that. If you lose to Tennessee, now you have 2 losses, and I don't think you're going to finish the season with 2 losses throughout the whole way.
You used Tennessee?
Well, I'm saying if. I'm saying if you lose to Tennessee. I'm not saying they will. I have them winning that game. But if. If the quarterback position...
I was just surprised. Of all teams that you pick, pick the team that you dislike the most in Tennessee.
I'm saying because it's so early. Like we said, Felipe, not proven. Malik Zaire, not proven. If they have a rocky start, that could tank the Gators season because there are 4 games, key games, 4 of them. Yes, there could be trap cards all over this place. Texas A&M is one of them. You've activated my trap card. However, there are 4 games, and I'm glad you got that joke, Brandon. There are 4 games I look at. Michigan, Tennessee, Georgia, Florida State. 2 have huge college football playoff, as Trump would say, huge college football playoff implications, Michigan and Florida State. The other 2 have huge SEC title game considerations on them. If you lose to Tennessee, then all Georgia needs to do is beat you, and they have the better odds to win the division. If Michigan beats you, then odds are you got to pretty much go perfect the rest of the year in order to make the college football playoff. Because, I forgot this. By the time if you do get to the college football not the college football playoff, the SEC title game, Brandon, refresh my memory, who's probably going to be sitting there waiting for you?
Oh, I think it's going to be Bama.
Yeah, and not a chance. Not a chance. I got Alabama. Spoiler alert, I got Alabama winning this division. I got Alabama winning this conference. I got Auburn being the second best team in this conference. And they're not even going to get a chance to play for that title game because they're in the same division as Alabama. Florida, to me, your key thing, I'm not saying that your season is over. I do not want you to overreact. However, I do want you to understand you got to lock up that quarterback right away. And whichever decision you make, I'm going to say it again, you have to make sure that is the right decision. If you lay your head on your pillow at night and you lay awake wondering if you made the right decision, odds are you didn't make the right decision. And that's going to be the biggest thing that either is good for their season or bad for their season.
So an interesting article that I came across.
That you stumbled upon?
That I stumbled upon is one that it's very interesting to me, and I think it would be very interesting to college football fans.
We'll put it in the description.
In general, and to Florida fans specifically is the fact that Florida's been really good. They've been winning. They're half of the conference in the East, and they've been winning and they've been blowing teams out, and it's been them and it's been Alabama. Those have been kind of the teams that have been there for a while. But the article brings up a really good point of that with all the winning that Florida's done over the last couple of seasons, it's made them just good enough to be Outback or Citrus Bowl good, but not college football playoff good. And it mentions the fact that Florida needs to be able to be that team that can move to the next level and be that team that not only beats LSU on a given day, but then at the same time lets Vandy in to be close, in a game, and especially the last couple of seasons. It needs to be this team like the Alabama that is able to come through and roar through some of these teams, win the games that they're supposed to win in not dramatic fashion, but like overwhelming fashion. And I think that this is a really, really, really interesting article, and it talks about the fact that whether it's Malik Zaire, whether it's Felipe Franks, they need to be able to open up the passing game, something that Florida's been really unable to get going. I know people will say, well, Del Rio was okay, or Appleby was okay. That's the problem. They were just okay. They weren't good. They weren't great. They didn't do anything dynamic. Florida needs to be able to do something dynamic at quarterback. Otherwise, they will never beat the Alabamas. They will never be able to be at the winning the college football playoff. Look at Jalen Hurts. Now, he is a dynamic guy, a dynamic playmaker. And having him there at the quarterback position lets Alabama do their thing and win the games the way they're supposed to win them. Florida needs to be able to get on that same page. They need to be out recruiting some of these people in Georgia and LSU and stuff like that. You need to be able to bring the right guys into your place, and you need the dynamic playmakers in place to be able to win. We're going to just post the rest of this article online because I could talk about this for days, but it's a really good article that basically kind of calls Florida out to, you've been good, but it's been easy.
But you haven't
really been anything other than good. So, you can be good and be complacent at the same time. And it's time for Florida to take that next step, even though they've been winning and been winning the East. It's time to take that next step. Not only win the East, win the SEC, get a spot in the college football playoff, and make some noise.
Well, and I want to now turn the conversation onto you. We've talked enough about it. Brandon's going to email me that article so I can put it down below in the description for you guys. But let us know what you guys think. Who's going to be the starting quarterback, either Felipe or Zaire? How do you think Florida does this year? I kind of feel like our kind of preview might have sounded negative. We're not trying to be negative. I am trying to be realistic with Florida and not try to blow smoke up your rear end when it could be a not so great season for you guys. However, I do think this division comes down to Florida and Georgia in the end.
Well, I just want to say, too, is I don't think that we're going to see anything but a probably a pretty good season from Florida. It's just the fact of my kind of like my whole point there at the end, and the point of, I think, the article that I was reading is the fact that it's time for that next step. It's time for that next step, and the quarterback position is going to be of utmost importance. Whether it's Felipe, whether it's Malik, that guy needs to take it to the next level.
Well, and this is where you guys come in and let us know down below in the comment section. Also, want to thank you guys for checking out the Primetime Podcast, whether it's the Florida segment on YouTube, whether it's the full podcast on YouTube, whether you're listening on Blog Talk Radio, iTunes, or Stitcher. Thank you guys for giving us a part of your day, letting us talk about what we love to talk about, which is college sports with you guys. Make sure to follow us on Twitter. I'm at Ricky Widmer. He's at Young_Swan19. Most Valuable Podcast is at Most Valuable Pod because we're always on there talking about the things we love, which are sports, gaming on my side. Anything that we love, we are voicing our opinions and conversing with you guys even more so than we are right now. I really want to thank you guys for checking out today's podcast. And as always, have a good day, everybody.